There are many different ways to seal your EVA foam props and costumes, but today I'm going to show you how I sealed this one using neoprene. Hey, greetings there fellow makers, welcome down to my little shop. I'm Bill and today I'm going to show you how I sealed my Voltron paladin helmet using Creature Cast, a neoprene rubber. Now, I've been doing some helmet videos lately, including a basic templating video and doing some sealing on the seams to fill those in using my quick seal. You can go check out those videos if you'd like to see kind of how we've gotten to this point. But I figured since I've come this far, I might as well finish a helmet all the way up, including sealing it all and painting. For this particular example, I decided to go with a neoprene rubber. This stuff here is called Creature Cast, and I'll tell you what, I think it's pretty great. It comes in several different varieties. This one here happens to be the semi-rigid version. This stuff shares a lot of similarities with the Poly Latex 60 that I like to use on my foam, like I did on my Mechanist helmet, but it does have a few key differences. The main difference is that if you are allergic to latex, then you can use the neoprene with no worries. There are some other differences I'll get to in a little bit, but first, let's kick this thing off and I'll show you how I sealed it. I started by using a little bit of 220 grit sandpaper to smooth out some of the quick seal I used to fill in the seams. Now, I wasn't able to get this perfectly smooth, like the way you could with a more rigid material using a body filler like Bondo, but I was able to smooth out the texture just a little bit. Then I went over the whole thing with a heat gun to heat seal all of that foam. This gives it a nice smooth texture to work with. To get started with the sealing, I used a brush to lay down my first couple coats of neoprene. I made sure to overlap the inside edge of the helmet, but there wasn't really any need to cover the entire inside. Also, I know that Creature Cast actually has a thickening agent that you can mix into the liquid before applying it. I think this could help the brush on layers go on a little bit thicker, but unfortunately we ran out of the thickener when we did our last batch of testing. So these brushed on layers did go on a little bit thin. To help myself out, I glued in a spare scrap of EVA foam inside the helmet so that I would have a good place to hold it while I was brushing on my liquid rubber. This also allowed me to hang it while drying. 2 good layers of the neoprene were brushed on and allowed to dry before getting set up for spraying. These brushed on layers made sure I got a little bit of the neoprene into all of the nooks and crannies. I used my air compressor and my Critter spray gun to apply the remaining layers of Creature Cast to my helmet. This is a super fast way to lay down nice, even layers without getting any brush strokes. The unthickened neoprene did tend to come out a little watery though, and I was only able to spray it in super thin layers. I didn't want the liquid to pool or sag. I think if I had some more of that thickener, I could have mixed that in and been a little bit more aggressive with my spraying. Also note that the rubber dries pretty quickly and can clog up the nozzle of your spray gun. It's pretty easy to clean up, but it's worth keeping an eye on if the flow rate drops. I think I ended up spraying on a good 10 layers of the neoprene, letting it dry between each layer. You heard me right, 10 layers. I do not mess around. No matter what, you're going to end up with a little bit of a texture on the finish, including some spots where dried clumps of rubber were spit onto the surface. Fortunately, Creature Cast has a massive advantage over the latex here. It can actually be sanded. That's right! I grabbed some 100 grit sandpaper and got to work evening out the texture and knocking back any of those gross little protrusions. I was extremely careful not to sand through the rubber layer back down to the foam. I can only imagine that would be a huge pain to try and reseal seamlessly. With my sandpaper in hand, I was able to do a pretty decent job cleaning up any of the remaining seam lines. Again, there's a limit on just how much finishing you can do with a flexible surface like this, but the results are still pretty fantastic. I sanded down the entire surface until it was all a nice matte finish. I'll tell you what too, I am super stoked with how well this finishing method worked on my foam helmet. The application did take quite a while spraying on all those layers, but it wasn't very difficult. I just had to, take the time to do it. Best of all, this helmet is still incredibly flexible. This keeps it from taking any sort of damage and makes it easier to mash into my luggage when I'm traveling. Plus, another huge advantage over the latex rubber is I can paint this with acrylic paints. I can just spray or brush normal acrylic paints right onto the surface, not so with latex rubber. For the latex, I had to use rubber cement paint. Of course, I got a video on that too. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna have to get my hands on more of this stuff. It's really great, and a little bit goes a very long way. Of course, I'm gonna have to get my hands on more of that thickener too, so I can do some more testing with some of my future prop and costumes. As always, links to the materials I use, like the creature cast here, or some of the tools, those are all listed down below if you want to go check them out for yourself. Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out the video. Hopefully you learned something new that will help you with your next prop and costume project. If you have any questions about this material or any of the techniques that I use, please let me know down in the comments. I try and get back to every one of you. And of course, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be finishing this helmet up completely, including paint, and I have a visor I'm going to add to it with a little bit of modification that'll go whoop right in there. So you don't want to miss any of those. Hit that subscribe button. And if you have a project that you're working on and you want to share it with me, let me know over on Twitter. I'm at Chinbeard. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. I'll see you all in the next build. Hey, thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe so you don't miss any of our new weekly prop and costume tutorial videos. For more goodies, head over to our website where you'll find blueprints, tutorial books, articles, and more. We also have a second channel for our Q&A show and extra behind the scenes videos. Thanks again and happy crafting.